Hello, and welcome to Learn and Lead. This is our special series, Leading Through a Pandemic, with Todd Popham and myself, Jennifer Triplett.
I read a really interesting article the last few days in the New York Times, and it's got a tough title to read, but if you get past the title, there's a lot of really good information in it. So the title is, "This Summer Will Scar Young Americans for Life." Well, that's an attention grabber. I don't have a high school child. I'm dealing more in the grandchild business, so I'm still interested in that down the road. But the article talked about what is it like if you're in high school right now? What is your aspects for employment, your social life, all these different things. And the interesting question, they said that a lot of young people are going to be asked, what did you do during the pandemic? Isn't that an interesting question? Imagine an interview for college, for a job, whatever, this X month period we're going through. What did you do during the pandemic? Somebody's gonna be very interested in how you respond to that. So today, I think maybe we can keep that question in the back of our mind as to helping young people come up with an answer to that. In other words, what are the opportunities that could produce a good answer there, whether it's experience and skill building and mentorship and a lot of those things we talked about. But I would say the question even goes to us as leaders.
Yes.
What are we doing during the pandemic? And certainly to help our young people, but also in our business. We're all going to be sitting around maybe with an adult beverage, maybe with an iced tea, a few years down the road and look back at all this. And people are going to write a lot of things about it. What did we do, climbing through that? That's really what this Learn and Lead is all about, is leading through the pandemic, not following through the pandemic, leading through the pandemic. Let me give you just a couple things this article brought to my attention that I thought were really interesting. So they talked about what's happening for these young people and potentially, some challenges in front of them. Lost earnings and work experience, certainly missed hours of education, unmade professional networks. In other words, people that they're not meeting right now that could help them going forward. It's pretty close to home for us too, I'm guessing. So many things that have been either delayed, put online, or even called off entirely. So there's the sense of loss that's coming to some of these young people. A couple other interesting things they talked about in here was there was a very recent study done by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they looked at the college students, and they talked to parents, and they said, what are your kids' plans? Half of the parents of high school students said their kids' college plans had changed in the last 2 months. Half of them turned upside down, had a plan, going to something else. Many of these families looking at cheaper or closer options, or should Johnny, should Jill even go to college? Those type of questions coming up. Isn't it interesting how the conversation has changed just over the last couple months? And the last, very end of the article, they talk about an idle summer might become an idle year. And an idle year might become an idle generation. That's kind of heavy for first thing in the morning. But I think as we think about this, things are different for us as business owners, but they're also different for our kids, or the kids who traditionally are Litos serving us pizza and other things, when all of that world looks differently right now. So let's be thinking about that question. What did you do during the pandemic? It's easy to look at that question in our context, but let's take that just to seniors in high school. And what are the things we can do? We're the people in the community, the business owners, that make things happen. Let's make it happen. With that, Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how we might potentially partner with your organization?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for putting me in a complete depression at 9:19 in the morning. So love the New York Times, and I hear everything that you're saying in that article. I refuse to take that tack. I think that we're going to get back to some semblance of a new reality. I don't think it's going to be that grim. And I think sometimes it's how you recover, not, the damage that was done. So I just want to address a little bit about that. Yes, things have changed, completely changed. Our kids, and I'll just tell you, it's relevant for me. I have a freshman at in engineering at NC State, who's sent home at spring break and hasn't been back. And I have a junior at Severna Park High School. So as far as like being a parent and relevant, believe me, I'm in there with you. But, our whole youth and our families were handed kind of a crap sandwich this spring. Everything changed and we've had to adapt. Our goal here is like, what's your post-COVID story going to be? And I think that we need to ask our kids, what's your post-COVID story going to be? Everything has changed. So I'll address a few things. First of all, seniors kind of have their plan now. All the schools are starting to talk about when they're going to go back. Some are doing a truncated fall starting in August, sending them back home Thanksgiving. That way they come in, they get tested, they have a healthy shortened semester, then they go home for Thanksgiving and they don't come back. So we don't have a lot of control anymore about seniors. So I want to talk about juniors who are rising seniors, because they're the ones that are going to be more affected. And with grades and things like that, colleges are going to be open. They're going to look at first quarter senior grades, which they usually don't look at. But as far as this summer, everybody lost their opportunities to travel or do their summer program. And, a lot of things have gone online. So that's very true. It's going to be different. But I think that what it provides for us as business owners is an opportunity to get some things done. I mean, I think most of us, our houses are cleaner than they've been in a long time, right? Because we've been home and had a chance to do that. I think that there's one thing about a kid going somewhere, say to Hopkins, and working for 2 weeks in the summer on an internship. But sometimes that just means your parents were wealthy, right? You can do the same thing in your backyard and not pay that money and not have to travel and go someplace. You can restore the shoreline. I've got a couple great examples of what some kids have done right here. So it's, yes, some of those opportunities are gone, but how do you create something new, right? I'll give you two examples of some boys that I'm working with. One, he wanted to be a lifeguard this summer, and we always tell kids, well, you want to be an engineer and you want to be a lifeguard, we need you to build something this summer. We need you to do something that shows colleges that engineering is really a passion for you. And he also likes to boat. So he started collecting not old life jackets, but life jackets for that families have outgrown. And he started working with Boater Safety Month. He collected so many jackets. He's got a campaign called Wear It. He was Student of the Week in the paper a couple weeks ago, and he is now like the spokesperson for boater safety for youth. So think about that in our area. If you've ever been out on the Severn on the weekend, or if you've been out to Dobbins Island, there are a lot of our youth out there, and he is an advocate for safety. That is going to look so good on his application. And it wasn't like he had to go far out of his wheelhouse to do it. We have another boy whose mom does short-term rentals in the Annapolis area. And of course, her business has been affected. But every summer, his job is to clean these, right? So we brainstormed for a while, and I thought, every time I go home from a vacation, I've got all this food or things I didn't use, and you don't want to take it home with you, especially if you're flying. He started a business called Depart Share. He got bags made and a letter that anybody who checks in for a short-term rental has one of these bags, and it talks about how anything that they don't use during their stay, they can put in these bags, and that he will be sharing them with our local shelters. So that's food, personal care items, different things like that. So he took something he was already doing and turned it into even more of a positive. And now we're hoping a couple other branches of his mother's company over on the West Coast are going to do the same thing. So now the kid who's going to do the same thing this summer that he did last summer has a business that may affect our country, right? So those are the stories we want to create for these kids. So yes, a lot of opportunities were canceled, but a lot of opportunities are here. We have a mahogany tide right now. I'm looking out my window and the water looks like chocolate milk. We need to be doing some things, and we've got our backyard is the water in this area. So these kids can get more involved with Spadero or Riverkeeper and do things like that. So what is your post-COVID story? We don't want it to be that you have blisters on your thumbs from playing video games. So we want to brainstorm. So my ask from you all is, I was thinking, there's a lot of businesses that could probably use a social media eye from a younger person. They could probably use a musician to play music while their people are eating, say at a Sunrise or a home where people are staying, some sort of entertainment. There's just so many things that people need now. And I wanted to reach out to the chamber and say, hey, let's put together a mentor-mentee situation. I'm not saying free labor, but I am saying opportunities for kids to try some different internship opportunities and dive in and do some things and just make our whole area more successful in all different ways, so that when the college asks, what did you do during COVID? They have an answer that's inspiring. And I will give you this little caveat. The common application, which is, for those of you who don't know, there's one application pretty much that you fill out and you can send to a number of schools. That's why more people apply to more schools now, because they made it easy. They are going to have a question in the additional information section about if you want to share your post-COVID story. My idea for my kids when they're writing their personal statement, personal essay, that one opportunity after grades and things, they can show who they are. I'm saying, please don't write about your COVID story, because these people are going to get COVID fatigue reading all these essays about the same thing. So we still want kids to show their values and creatively write and things like that in their personal statement. But if they have something specific to say, they can put it in additional information. So that's kind of how that's going to roll out. I don't know. What do you guys think?